Hey guys, hope you're all staying safe and doing well out there. I wanted to make a video today about the idea that guitars have souls or personalities and the connections that we make with our instruments. So I watched a video a long time ago. I believe it was a Rob Chapman video, but I'm not sure. I don't even remember what the video was, but he mentions briefly about the idea that he was connecting with a guitar that he really believed had a soul and a personality of its own that he really connected with and that really inspired him. And I thought that was a really interesting concept, and it's an interesting debate that we can have in the guitar community, because I know a lot of people do see guitars as a very spiritual connection when you're playing, and then a lot of guitarists also just see them as tools to do a job, to record music, to play music or whatever. So I think it's important to distinct the difference between a soul and a personality, or what I think the difference is anyway. To me, a soul is, a connection with an instrument that makes you feel inspired to play it. So I'm going to show a few examples of my guitars and kind of give you an idea of how I feel about them. And a personality, on the other hand, is they've got a people-like quality that you can relate to and speak to, and inspires you in a different way. And it feels like you're, enjoying music with someone rather than with something almost. So the first guitar I wanted to show you was this one, which is my 1997 Ibanez Tauman in Silver Sparkle. Ibanez Super 58 pickups. It's got Bigsby, 5-way switch to get some coil tap sounds. Beautiful guitar, beautiful vintage piece, or not, well, maybe it's vintage these days. But this guitar really has the personality to me of an old reliable friend. This is the guitar it was my first proper guitar. It's the guitar I always go back to, and I always just am reminded, I'm always just reminded of, how comfortable I am with this guitar. This is definitely the guitar I'm most comfortable with, and I honestly don't play that often anymore. So when I come back to playing this guitar, it really kind of reminds me of, going back to your hometown, catching up with an old friend who is always going to be there. It really does have the personality of an old, reliable friend that's always going to be there for you. And that really inspires me to play this guitar. And, I really feel comfortable playing with this live. I feel like I'm really connecting with this guitar. And it's almost like a spiritual thing. I don't know. That I really feel like I'm connecting with this guitar. So there's this one, my Ibanez Tauman. So next I'm going to show you a guitar that I don't really connect with. In the same way, anyway. This is my Artist ST VMV or VMG, something like that. Basically what it is Artist's take on a Strat. Now, I haven't had this one for very long, which could contribute to what I'm about to say. But to me, it doesn't have a soul or a personality yet. And it might not, and here's why. So it's a Strat that's mass-produced. Now, mass-produced doesn't always mean it doesn't have a soul. Some of my other guitars are mass-produced, and I do believe they have, a personality. This one, though, I think the mass-produced nature does contribute to the fact that I think it's a bit soulless. It's also got things like locking tuners, baked maple neck, 2-point Wilkinson modern trem, 1 volume, 1 tone. It's got kind of higher or more modern spec components for a Strat. And I think that is one of the reasons why it just doesn't give me the same connection some other guitars do. It also plays pretty flawlessly. It's got a pretty flawless feeling neck. It's flawless finish pretty much. And, it sounds fantastic, plays absolutely beautiful. It's one of the best playing guitars I've got, but it just doesn't capture a soul, or it doesn't connect with me in a way that the Ibanez does because of the personality that the Ibanez has. So I think, it's a great guitar, but to me, this is more of a tool. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a musical instrument as a tool to do a job, but that's what it is. To me, anyway. This is my kit-built Tele from a Pitbull Guitars Tele style kit. It's got my own Fender style logo, matching headstock, maple neck, Fender custom pickup in there, and then a GFS pickup. Standard Tele switch, which has just fallen off. That's all right, I'll go grab that later. And this, to me, does have a personality because it's got a story. So obviously the sentimental value of building it with my dad and, going through that process with him does mean a lot to me with this guitar. It's also, you might be able to just see when we were painting it. Are you going to be able to see it? Probably not. No. There is a crack. It looks like a crack down here. When we were painting it, we were putting on the last coat, and one of my dog's hairs just flew through the air and landed under the coat. I couldn't be bothered fixing it, so I kind of like that it's got a piece of my dog in here. It's also been battered. You can see there's a few marks and stuff from when we were building it that I just didn't want to bother fixing. It is very heavy. The neck is big, like too big for my preference. The action doesn't get super low. I do like a fairly high action, but this is still probably a bit too high for me, combining that with the thicker neck as well. So it has its flaws, but I think the story and the flaws give it a real workhorse, underdog personality that really means a lot to me. So, this is, I think the kit was $160. So, it's not an expensive guitar at all. But for those reasons, for the fact it has a story, that's what gives it a soul and personality that I connect with. And I think a lot of guitars, that might be the case. So there's my Tele custom kit sort of thing. That's why I think this has a personality. So let's move on to another guitar that I don't think has that sort of soul. This is my Fender Player series. Oh, sorry, not Player series. This was back when it was the Offset series. Mustang limited edition. What does the limited edition mean? Well, it means I got it in shell pink with a Power Ferro fretboard instead of the other colors with the maple board. It's pretty much stock. Actually, no, it's not really that stock. I've changed the saddles because the saddles that came with it were no good, to be honest. They were rusting and, within a few months of having it. So changed the saddles, and I changed the pickups to Creamery pickups. This switch changes how they sound. They're Creamery Alt 78s. So switch down is normal Mustang. Switch up, they kind of gain kind of a Tele P90 sort of very gnarly growl to it. The output is boosted. They sound fatter. It's a really cool sounding set of pickups, and it's actually a very versatile sounding guitar because of that. However, even though it's got a very funky vibe, very unique look, the Mustang is one of the coolest shapes, I reckon, in guitar or in guitar making. And, a lot of people buy a Mustang because it has a quirky personality or, just to have something different in their collection. To me, though, I don't know why, I've never connected with it the same way I have some other guitars. It always has felt much more like a tool as an instrument. So, it's a tool that I can use to create music and play music. I've played it live a bunch of times, and it's a very fun guitar to play live because it really lends itself to energetic, jumping around on stage, those sorts of performances. But it still feels just a bit like a tool to make music. Maybe I haven't found its personality yet. I actually don't know why, and you know, that's okay too. Sometimes you just don't connect with an instrument the way you do with other instruments. But yeah, I just haven't connected with it the same way. It's a beautiful guitar. It's got a few battle scars, which I enjoy. You know, it sounds absolutely fantastic, plays really nice as well. But yeah, I don't know why, I've just never found its soul or personality. So, you know, sometimes we get a guitar that ticks all the boxes, but we just don't connect with it in that spiritual sense, or whatever you want to call it. All right, this is where we're going to cue the comment hatred, because I just told everyone in the world through YouTube that I didn't think my Fender Mustang had much personality or soul, if any, but I do think this does. Now, this is a PRS SE Custom 24. This is Indonesian made. I think it's Cortec, is it? Yep. It's a 2020 model. I got this for Christmas in 2020. Now, if you don't know, PRS guitars are often labeled as the soulless instruments. Like, they're often labeled as, in the music industry, you've got Fender, you know, they've got their vibe. Gibson, they're doing their thing. PRS, they're tools, you know. They, no soul, no personality. In fact, I know Paul Reed-Smith, who, you know, PRS, Paul Reed-Smith, the owner of the company and founder of the company, often says that he wants his guitars to be tools for musicians. You know, they can take them out of the box and then play a show or a studio session straight away. So even he sees them as tools. The reason that I believe this has such a personality is, again, a story. There's actually a few stories. So the first kind of element is, I've been dreaming of a PRS guitar ever since I started playing guitar, really. My first kind of favorite guitarist that really inspired me was Mark Tremonti, who's obviously got his signature PRS. And, you know, that kind of took me down the rabbit hole of, you know, the beautiful flame tops and the birds. And I was just obsessed with PRS for the longest time, and I still am in a sense. So I went to a music shop with a mate, and I was looking to buy a hollow body, and I had a blindfold on, and my mate was handing me a bunch of Epiphone Casinos and Ibanez's, all hollow body guitars, and he, out of the nowhere, he hands me this. It actually was in a different color, but it was this model. And he handed it to me like this. I grabbed it with my hands like that. As soon as I grabbed it, I said, "This is a PRS, isn't it?" And then I played it, and it just sounded the best. It felt the best, and that was it. I just knew I had to have one. So my girlfriend organized between, you know, herself and her family and my family and, you know, a bunch of other people to chip in and buy this for me for Christmas. And that's the story of this guitar. So to me, it really has the personality of kind of everyone involved in getting me this guitar. So it really means a lot to me, and I really do connect with it in, you know, a spiritual way, in a sense. I really, you know, when I'm playing this, it really feels like home. It's, you know, it's much like the Ibanez. It really feels like, you know, just a great friend who's going to be with you and stick by you, and I feel comfortable playing it live. And, you know, it does all the sounds in the book, and, you know, it looks beautiful, but this really does have, you know, a soul because of that story. And that's, you know, why I think this soulless guitar does have a soul. So what about guitar names? So I know a lot of people like to name their guitars, and that's what gives that guitar their personality. I used to do that with my guitars over here. You know, every time I'd get a new one in, I'd play it for a bit and, you know, see what name kind of matched its identity or personality. I don't really do that anymore. I just found it became pointless for me. So, you know, it's not for everyone, but I know some people do like to name their guitars, and that's what gives them their personality. Like, if you watch Premier Guitar on YouTube and their rig rundown videos, a lot of those, you know, professional, famous guitarists and musicians, they do name their instruments because, between them and their guitar tech, they have these names, to make it easier when they're playing live, and also just to give them some personality. So, I know a lot of people like to do that as well. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the idea of guitars and other musical instruments simply being tools to do a job, to play music or to gig or whatever you're doing with music, right? I think a lot of professional musicians who aren't that into gear do see these things as just tools. An amplifier is a tool to make the guitar sound good and project the volume. The guitar is, how you can transfer what you're doing with your hands to make the music. And the pedals are there to enhance or give you other sounds for writing or, creative work and things like that. And, that's completely fine as well. That's not what they are for me, as we've kind of discussed in this video. I think they've all got a personality in some way, although some I do see as tools. But, I think instruments and these sorts of things can have their own personality. I think what helps guitars in particular is they're made of natural materials. They're made of wood that you can connect with, you can craft it, it comes from nature. And I don't personally see it this way, but I know some people see that as a really beautiful thing that, you craft this thing from nature, you bend it to your will and turn it into something that you can create beautiful music with. I'd love to know what you guys think about it in the comments below. So, comments about your guitars that have personality, or do you see them as just tools? Do you have names for your guitars? Do you name your amps, your pedal board? I don't know. Please comment below. I'd love to, discuss in the comments what you guys think of this idea of guitars having souls and personalities and this sort of thing. So that's about it from me. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay safe.